As the questions continue, best time to plant fruit trees. Well, the best time is is late winter or is early spring, or you can plant it in the fall. So based on this individual, they got some sales on some fruit trees at their garden center and want to know if they can just go ahead and put them in the ground now or if they should leave them in containers all winter long. And well, do not leave them in containers all winter long. They will die.
And you want to look up some really good tree planting tips when you do this. One is definitely you want to dig the hole big enough to fit the root ball and allow a few inches around it. You don't want to backfill it with compost. You want to backfill it with its own native soil.
Yeah, and here's the thing. And the traditional method, people will say twice the size of the pot, backfill it with compost. And here's the problem with all of that. One, if you dig it twice as wide and you put the root system in there, that root system is not, and you backfill it with compost, the root system is not going to go explore and establish a structured root foundation because it has all the nutrients and the loose soil around that root ball, and it doesn't go. So when a big wind comes, the tree's going to fall over. If you keep it with the native soil and just as big as the root ball, as those roots explore, they will start going into the dense native soil that's around that system and lock itself into the ground. Secondly, if we are going to stake a tree, we do not want to anchor it down so a hurricane can't blow it away. We want to loosely anchor it, if at all. Typically, if you get a nice mature tree from the garden center, it's not been staked most of the time, and it's already got a structure in the stalk in order to support itself. But if you feel that it's necessary in order to stake it, you want to loosely stake it with a soft material, like a bike inner tube, a soft rope. We don't want to use metal wire to tie it into the bark because it will grow into the bark and it will actually hurt the cambium layer of that tree. So that's some of the things you want to be aware of. Also, during our tree care tip this spring, the number one thing that all tree planters need to do before they plant a tree is, one, know how tall that tree is going to get, and two, look up before you plant the tree.
Yeah, know how wide the canopy of that
tree is. I'm going to put it right beside the house. Well, now your tree is going to be part of your house because the canopy gets 30 foot wide in 15 years, and you're going to cause a lot of structural problems.
You're going to have a tree roommate.
You're going to have a lot of problems. Mm-hmm. So there it is. You can go ahead and plant it now, water it in, get it in before the ground. If the ground is frozen, you're too late because you need the soil to be pliable enough for those roots to get in. You want to remove that burlap or the wire mesh, tease the roots out, and then plant it and make a little valley or a pool around the root system. A divot, so you can water, and the water, you can get that system very hydrated. All right, next question about bleach and creeping Charlie.
Yeah, so this is actually another one of my coworkers. She bought a house from one of her family friends, and her family friend just said, FYI, to get rid of the creeping Charlie, I would just dump bleach on it.
Which is nice that information was shared.
Yeah. So my coworker, being a busy woman with some little kids, she was like, I don't know if I want to deal with that. And I said, yeah, I don't know the exact problems, how long it might take for that bleach to dissolve, and maybe you could do a soil test. But she ended up growing in some 5-gallon buckets and raised beds and whatnots, which is good. But if you do have that situation where you're not sure about the soil, or maybe the previous homeowner said, I've been just doing this,
or the previous homeowner never told you anything,
right? You could definitely get a soil test, and I think a lot of people they kind of think soil tests are a pain or whatever. But
low cost, great information.
Yeah, and it's something that it's worth the money.
Because if you're putting in a garden and you continually have issues of the plant dying or getting some type of reaction to whatever's in the soil, you've put a lot of time and effort into this procedure, and nothing is going on. So you need to know what is in the soil. And again, like we talked about earlier, you can't look at the soil and go, hey, that soil has XYZ in it. So you want to be aware of what's going on beneath the soil. How can I propagate blackberries? I have quite a few. I'd like to expand my grow area. Okay. Growing blackberries from cuttings is very easy. It's really, really simple to do. Here's what you want to do. You would want to take about a 4 to 6 inch cutting of the cane or the cane stem, and then you want to place it in a moist peat moss or sand mix, sticking them in a couple of inches and keeping that moist, keeping it out of direct sunlight. Now, some people will say you'll want to use rooting hormone to help stimulate the growth of these roots in which you're going to be developing. You don't have to do that. Just keep it in a shady location. In about 3 or 4 weeks, you should be able, or you should see roots start to develop on this. Now, we've got some in a mason jar sitting on a windowsill. There's 14 cuttings in there. I took 6-inch cuttings off of the wild blackberry plant, which was next to the woods, and shoved them in about an inch or so. Moisten the sand to keep it damp, and I removed all of the leaves, because what occurs whenever you take a cutting is that plant is going into survival mode. And if we can remove all the leaves and leave the stem or the cane, it will basically kind of all start growing again at one time. It will start putting roots on, it will start putting external growth on, and then you can go ahead and place it in potting soil or place it in a planter or in the bed in which you're going to take and start establishing growth of new patch on. So that's a good, easy way to do that. You can do that right now in the fall time of year and get ready for spring. Now, these may not grow, have a lot of production the first year, but you can get them established on your grow bed. Next question about pears. My pear tree makes very juicy, but a little on the tart side pears. This is what I love. I pick them before they fall. I would like to juice and store them with their tartness, yet some sweet flavor intact. Any advice? What would you do? I appreciate the information. Well, as long as you don't add sugar to the juice, the flavor should stay relatively to that tartness in which you like. It's whenever you start making that syrup and adding sugar to the mixture, that's when you're going to change the property of tartness to sweet, and not, some people like it, some people don't.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.